Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. And I'm very grateful today for the opportunity to invite in a new leader in our community, new to me anyway, and an old friend. We're not old, are we, Kathleen?
No.
A dear friend, Kathleen Gramsey, who is the founder of Kennesaw. Kathleen will be co-hosting this special edition today. So thank you for saying yes.
My pleasure.
And thank you for the introduction to Sarah and all the work that she's doing.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
So with a fun show.
It's going to be fantastic. So Sarah Kearney is the executive director for Blue Zones project in Scottsdale. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm so happy to have a conversation with you on air that's, other people are going to get to listen to. This is all new to me. I know a little bit about Blue Zones, mainly because of Kathleen and what she's been sharing with me. And I want to let our audience know that we had a chance, the three of us, to connect at one of the most recent STN filming, and that was a chance for us to just get to know each other. And so I'm always helpful and helpful about connecting people and making sure that we give credit where credit's due. So Kathleen, thank you for saying to me and Sarah when we were there, you two need to know each other.
My pleasure. I love connecting good people, and that we have a whole city and community of great people. So it's really fun.
We really do. I just have started saying recently, good people know good people.
Yes.
I say it a lot. You might find it on social media. I'm like constantly being reinforced, and I believe that to be true. So Kathleen, if you don't mind, since you're our special guest co-host, if you'll tell a little bit about Kennesaw, yourself, and then why the work that Sarah and her team are doing is important, and then we'll have Sarah introduce herself as well.
My pleasure. So my business is Kennesaw LLC, and what I do is I work with leaders and teams and teach them body-mind resilience strategy and training. So when I look at sustainability, I'm really looking at it at a core level, which is our ability to be able to think clearly, get along with people, and stay healthy. And that really comes from the basis of our nervous system. So in my 20 plus years, that started out as a massage therapist and then as an educator, and then developing my systems into self-care systems for the public and coming into business, it really is just the micro of the macro, which is individually as we care for ourselves and we learn how to partner with our body minds and keep them resilient, we are able to then bring our best selves to our families, to our businesses, to our communities. So I really love that. I come from a holistic solutions, root cause solution concept. So for me, I just keep seeing that circle getting wider and wider. And when I met Sarah and I saw Blue Zones was here, I was like, what? Mm-hmm. Because of course, my holistic background, I knew about them and I've been on that path for quite some time personally. So it's really fun to have you here, Sarah, with us.
Yes. Quite the introduction. Thank you. And Sarah, how about you?
Yep. So I am new to Blue Zones actually as well. So I wasn't a longtime follower of Blue Zones or Dan Buettner himself. And so conceptually new as of March of 2022, when Scottsdale, and really led by Honor Health, invited Blue Zones into the community for an assessment to see if Scottsdale would be a good fit for the next Blue Zones project. And we'll talk and dive more into exactly what all of that means. But really, that's when I was a participant as a community member and really got to engage and learn more about the concept of Blue Zones. And I became fascinated. And so coming on board in May of 2023 as the executive director after a long time career in tourism for the community. So I've been promoting tourism to Scottsdale all over the globe for over 16 years. It was a complete shift. But what this opportunity really encompassed, and now the more and more people I get to meet in the community, is that all of these things that are most important and matter for many, many generations to come, and all the things that I care both personally and passionately and professionally about are all wrapped into this Blue Zones project box. And so connections and meaningful connections to really bring this message forward and embrace the community and see the ripple effect that it has is one of the great reasons why I think Blue Zones project is going to be incredibly transformational, not only for Scottsdale, but potentially for our state to come, as we are the first in Arizona to do this work,
Yeah.
but the 78th community across the country. So it's been living, breathing, existing, but now it's becoming much more popular, and people are becoming aware and understanding conceptually how simple it actually is, and people like that, and that's great when you can understand a concept and be able to implement it in your own life. So I'm just thrilled and so honored to be the leader of our local team here in Scottsdale and work with incredible people in our community to move initiatives forward.
What a fascinating way for you to come about this work. I'd forgotten that you had done tourism for Scottsdale. So for our listeners and viewers who may not have a clue what Blue Zone is, let's start there.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? What's the movement? And it's so great to hear that it's beginning to kind of take on a life on its own.
Yes. So I'm going to make the correlation up front and first, because most people still don't necessarily do it right away. But if you've seen a Netflix docuseries called Live to 100, Secrets of the Blue Zones, that is the same Blue Zones. And so Blue Zones really are the original longevity hotspots that were identified by our founder, Dan Buettner. He's been doing this research with a team of demographers for over 20 years in partnership with National Geographic. And what they found in these spaces and places, there's 5 original Blue Zones across the globe, is that it wasn't only their natural environments, but it was also their lifestyle behaviors and habits that they were living to 100 at far greater rates than we as Western civilization were. And in addition to that, they were living to 100 free of chronic disease, illness, and a variety of other ailments that, again, we see so prominent in people that we most interact with. And so extracting those sort of lifestyle principles and what their environments looked like, and helped shape them to be able to live better years for a much longer time, is really where the original Blue Zones came into play. And so with that said, those original Blue Zones, if you aren't familiar with them already, are Sardinia, Italy, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, Ikaria, Greece, Okinawa, Japan, and then the only original identified in the United States is Loma Linda, California. So those, again, different places had men living to 100 longer, others, women were living to 100 longer. And their lifestyle principles, which we call the Power 9, were really what shaped their behaviors in terms of the sort of secret sauce or formula to live to 100.
Mm-hmm. Kathleen, what does that do for you? And you and I have known each other for a long time, both professionally and personally. When you hear Sarah talk about this, and you've been studying it and paying attention from the work and the perspective that you do, right? Mind, body, soul, and that sort of thing. How does this light you up? Why does this light you up?
It does. Well, because so in my studies and experience, just studying and teaching anatomy and kinesiology, I have known for a long time that we're designed to make it to 120, believe it or not. And the body and mind is capable of being that, because we do have the resilience. However, there are basic core principles that are required. The body and mind, it doesn't really need much. The resilience is built in. However, there are a few basics, right? Good food, clean water, clean food, movement, and connection, right? So those are the principles, among others, of Blue Zone. So I always get really excited when truths that I have seen and known are getting more in the general public. And so that's why I'm so excited about Blue Zones, because this is information that everybody can understand. It is understanding that we have choices, and it can make a difference. We have to have the will to make the choices, but they don't have to be hard choices, right? That is mindset. And that's also the kinds of support. So that's what I love about Blue Zones is they have all kinds of products and support. There's cookbooks. I get my emails and there's, okay, this is what's happening. Are you doing this? Have you this movement? Have you tried this? I was like, I can't wait to try that recipe.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff I would not normally be doing. It's coming right to me and I just get to access it. So anytime we can make being healthy, staying healthy, and doing things that are good for us the easy choice, we all have the ability to keep just facilitating our body's ability to take care of itself. Like I look at us as we are the stewards of the vehicles we've been given. And there's just a couple things: get good rest, feed it well, take care of it, water, and the social connection. That's the outside piece of us. And when you do those things, it pretty much can take care of itself. Like all it needs is help. It just like quit damaging me, right? Quit putting all the other stuff and just support me a little bit and I will support you. And then we get to do all the things we love. We get to be the people we want to be. We get to, have interest in other things that when you're not healthy or you're not mobile or you're not energized, you don't have the wherewithal to even care about it. So it's a game changer, and it's a society game changer, which is why I'm excited about it.
Help me understand, Sarah, from really a city perspective, right? From a, I'm going to say government perspective, for lack of a better word. Where does the funding come from? You mentioned that Honor Health, I think is what you said, was the first to say, hey, this is something we had to, talk about, look at. Where do they fit in? And then where's the funding come from? When Kathleen speaks to community, we can all move faster and do greater things together. Help me understand how Blue Zones facilitates that.
Absolutely. So, yes. So Honor Health, in partnership with the city of Scottsdale, invited Blue Zones in for the assessment. Upon completion of the assessment, and then I think that's one of the most important pieces of this work, is that Blue Zones doesn't just say yes to everyone. So certainly they're getting invitations to go into communities for assessment purposes to take it to the next level of implementation of a Blue Zones project. But Blue Zones identifies, and meets and comes in and really spends a lot of time to ensure that there is community readiness. And that is first and foremost, the most important component of bringing a Blue Zone project into a community, because this really is community-led work and it's nationally supported. And so that was identified with our leadership, our stakeholders, our business stakeholders, Honor Health really leading the charge with great leadership and our CEO, Todd Laporte at Honor Health. And then from there, when Blue Zone said, yes, Scottsdale is a perfect community to start and kick off in Arizona. Then it became a matter of, okay, well, who's going to help support this initiative? And that's when Honor Health really went and connected with the Cigna Group, as well as Goodwill of Central and Northern Arizona, as some additional partners to bring this into the community. And I think it really provides an interesting outlook as you look at the mission of all of those organizations, one being a major healthcare organization in our community across the state, one being an insurer, and one that's just doing good things for good people to really, end poverty and create equity among all and giving opportunities. And when you look at the leaders of all of those entities, it was, you had me at hello. What can we do to work together to bring this into our community, and then ultimately see that ripple effect of how it can impact others? And so we were able to kick into transformations, pretty quickly with those three signature kind of partners on board. Again, with the support of the city of Scottsdale as well. And then it was foundation period. So then I came on board first. I hired a local team, and then we really started getting out into the community to lay the groundwork, because so very important is the last thing any community wants is for someone to come in from another place and tell them what to do and how to do it. And so that was one of the most important pieces. And one of the things that Blue Zones prides itself on is that they don't send people in from another place to go do the work in a community. They seek talent and hire from within those communities, because nobody knows those communities better than the people that have either worked, lived, played, and or prayed, et cetera, in those communities. So it's one of the things I love, because, I've been able to utilize those relationships that we've built over the many, many years, and then our team's relationships and their skill sets that they've done maybe in surrounding communities, and we could implement in Scottsdale as it aligns with Blue Zones project. So we are fortunate that, Scottsdale is a good sized community, but feels really, really small. And there's so much interconnectivity that when you align and lockstep with all of the right leaders at the table, they help move those initiatives forward together. And we are really fortunate to have an exceptionally strong steering committee, sort of advisory council, if you will, that is made up of all of the places and sectors of work that we're really going to be focused on. So having that leadership supporting us and being able to funnel it to their entities and their organizations is invaluable as we kind of proceed into the 4 years of transformation work.
Mm-hmm. Is there evidence from these community-wide, you're smiling, these community-wide initiatives? I mean, and is it evidence-based work?
It absolutely is. And that was really ultimately probably why Honor Health moved forward with it. And so there's a lot of great examples, and there are a lot of but the thing about it is, when you've seen one Blue Zone project community, you've only seen one Blue Zone project community, because every community is so different, and every community is at a different starting point, and every community's needs are different as they're identified. And so Honor Health utilized Fort Worth as an example, because they had gone through a Blue Zone project. Fort Worth, a considerably larger community than Scottsdale, but with that said, it was spearheaded by a major healthcare organization in that area. And they were able to provide their results and the increases in favorable aspects as it related to not only their Gallup Wellbeing Index surveys, but even from community health needs assessment type data and a variety of other data sources. And so every community does have that tracking and evidence-based model that we have menus of best practices as it relates to all areas in terms of implementation and seeing favorable results. And so it's great that we can kind of customize that for our community. So not everything is going to be a fit based on what Blue Zones recommends, but we certainly can pick and choose and make sure that we can still do enough to move the needle in a favorable way to improve overall well-being, but also make sure that, again, it fits with our community and what the people want to see moving forward.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you have questions as well, Kathleen, and I'm curious if you have questions. Before that, though, I'm thinking about your work with Kennesaw. When you go into municipalities and corporations and you help people and their teams, how is this synonymous with the work that you're doing? And tell us a little bit more about Kennesaw and how you work with organizations.
Happy to. I do love, there's a great dovetail here. So as I said it is like micro and macro. Stress and burnout is something that we've all been dealing with, especially since the post-pandemic. And it's one of those things that it used to be such a badge of honor, right? People would say, "Oh, I worked 90 hours," or that would be one of the criteria to promote people, and in some fields still is. But what happens is that it affects people on it's such a insidious thing, in that it's like a pair of self-darkening sunglasses. You put them on and you go in the sun, and you're like, okay, they're dark, and you go into your office and you don't realize you still have them on. So you're seeing through a darkened lens, and that's what chronic stress is. It's a darkened lens that affects how you think, how you feel, how you behave, and then physical disease. So what's interesting about it is we don't know, because we are not aware we still have the sunglasses on, but everybody else can see it, right? So all of a sudden, and it's just so subtle, like, maybe you used to be a really optimistic person and now you become very cynical, or your tendency to worry about things has now gotten you like not having the ability to make decisions. You get so worried, you get frozen and not being able to do it. So when I work with leaders and teams, the point is to really shift the understanding, right, of stress being, just something we live with, to really the understanding that stress, there's good stress, right? There's having, it's just like building a muscle. To work out a muscle is a good thing because it strengthens you. Stress in expanding our capacities is a good thing. But when it becomes chronic, that's when it affects the nervous system and starts to spiral, as you well know.
I was just thinking about my own journey and experience for 3 years.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So we don't recognize that. And it inhibits our ability to get along with each other, to think creatively, and it puts us in a state of mistrust.
Yeah.
It also affects the culture. So what leaders and teams, so with all these, especially mission-based businesses, right, or organizations, the passion is there. So it's not like, I don't like my job, I'm going to do as little as possible. It's just the opposite, right? Mission-driven organizations, they care so much, will trample all over their own boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a caregiver who was an overgiver, I can speak to that, because I was on the floor in the fetal position, doing my, getting my businesses launched. And when we change the narrative about stress, understand there's good stress, but also understand that we can be our best when we are healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, physically healthy, and behavioral healthy, and they all are tied together.
Mm-hmm.
So just by learning that you can actually shift your nervous system as a leader, you're neurologically different. So the number one factor of attrition is a toxic culture. What's rated top in toxic cultures or makes it toxic? The leadership not being trusted.
Right.
So why are people not trusted? Well, because survival mode, we're in threat. So if somebody is stressed out and they're acting in ways that they maybe otherwise wouldn't, maybe they're making bad decisions because they're in fear. So that ripple effect, who you're being is your culture. So that affects leaders, especially leaders and managers, because they have the biggest impact on organizations. So when we look at it on a business level, we can see how that impacts everything, right? Those business decisions, how that business acts, whether they're a corporate, responsible corporate partner or they're not. But then all those people go home, right? They go home to their families. And most people are not working because it's just for the love of working. They're working because they're usually doing it. I have a family I love that I want to provide for, or I want to generate new things in my own life or whatever it is. But we take that with us. So now we want to show up as our best selves when we get home. And usually that's when you're wiped out because you just, spent all of your energy and your will, right? Making a lot of decisions. And so our ability to show up and be really our best selves is challenged.
Mm-hmm.
So in working with leaders and teams, that's the biggest place of impact. So my thing has always been a progression of how can I impact greater numbers of people? And then this, again, dovetails to society, which is what we're talking about with Blue Zones. So
Right.
it's a beautiful fit.
Yeah. When you connect, Sarah, with the community and the leaders, are these the kinds of conversations that you're hearing? I mean, whether it's a professional like Kathleen who says, I have a part of the solution, or if it's somebody that just says, I'm leading a team and we're exhausted, or I'm exhausted. Tell me a little bit about what triggers for you when Kathleen's sharing.
Yes. So that's exactly what we do in alignment too. And so when we think about our three kind of areas of work, it really is around people, places, and policy. And so when we talk people, it's that individual engagement. It's that individual taking care of themselves. Often individuals that are service minded and service first take care of themselves last. And so whether it's caregiving for a loved one, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a medical professional, they are putting others oftentimes first and foremost. And so it is that kind of self accountability of, I too want to live better longer. And I want to take those simple steps and changes to implement in my life wherever I'm at so that I can ensure, or at least better ensure, that that is what happens. And so the work that we do really does, in order for it to be sustainable, it does really require us to reach critical mass and tipping points. And so we've got those metrics as it relates to Scottsdale becoming a Blue Zone certified community, that there is an individual engagement number. So that means, 15% of our population, 15 and older, engages with Blue Zones project in some capacity. That could mean that they are taking a personal pledge. That means they could be attending one of our programs or workshops. That means they could be participating in a walking MOI group. That could be they participate in a purpose workshop. These are all types of programs that we bring to the community at no cost. So we really try to remove any barriers for access to well-being, because ultimately we're trying to empower everyone everywhere to live better longer. And we want to, by making healthy choices, easy choices, but we also want to ensure that well-being is accessible to everyone. And people can unpack that in a variety of different ways, but it's as the part of the core of Blue Zones. But as it relates to the places work, which I think really directly aligns with what Kathleen does as well, is that when employers prioritize the well-being of their employees, that correlates to a lot of favorable outcomes: higher productivity, less turnover, less absenteeism, employees feeling valued, connected in their workspace and place with their colleagues, and their leadership for
Yes.
that matter too. And so what we have as it relates to the places is we kind of focus in 4 areas of places work, and one of them is work sites. And so any business, in our community can get registered to become a Blue Zones approved workplace. And what we then do is we sit down with them, we talk about what they're already doing. We have a pledge packet that has a menu of best practices. And it's not only about their physical environment, but it is about their culture. It is about things like encouraging maybe a micro break every 20 minutes, get up every 20 minutes throughout the day. So there's some simple things. There's also a food component, right? What are they serving if they have a cafeteria or if they have vending machines? What are those options for their employees to make healthier choices? And sometimes when they are the unavoidable choice and it's right in front of your face, it's a lot easier to make that healthy choice, which I think Kathleen even touched upon a little bit in the beginning of our time together. And so we work with those businesses. Some businesses are well along on the path and already prioritizing well-being. Others have some work to do, but that's okay because that's what our team is here to help get them to the finish line. And we've got time to do it. So no matter where they're at and how far along they've come, we will sit side by side and work with them to become Blue Zone approved work sites. And then that comes with some great notoriety too, that it shows that, maybe from a talent recruitment standpoint, that they're an organization that they've had to be validated as an organization that is proving that they are doing all of these things that they say that they're doing. And that's really important, I think, from both aspects, to be proud as an employer that you're doing that, but also as someone seeking employment. Where are there places that my well-being is going to be a priority in the busy way of life and the stressors of the world still moving quickly while we're trying to potentially slow things down a little bit and take those moments to pause. The other areas, schools, work sites, schools, grocery stores, and restaurants. So we call really sort of our life radius, the spaces and places we spend 90% of our time outside of our home. And so as it relates to schools, really that's twofold. Schools, again, that's where our children go, right? What are they learning at young ages? What are they being fed at school when they go to school? What choices, what decisions are they making? And so, but our schools are also one of our largest employers too. And so our teachers, our staff, they clearly have purpose in what they do, because I think most wouldn't be doing it if they didn't. So taking care of them too. So again, great alignment with our schools. And then as it relates to work, at restaurants and grocery stores, right? I think all the time, if I knew and I was looking at a menu that had 50 pages, if there was something that showed me what the best options were that were going to be the healthiest, and it sounds really good and it tastes really good, which oftentimes, whether people think so or not, the healthiest stuff is delicious if we give it a chance, but we just have to make it sound delicious. And sometimes we don't do a good job of that. So, there's a variety of different things we'll do with restaurants, even when we look at our kids' menus, right? What are those kids' menu options? What are those healthy choices? Let's try some new things. Grocery stores too, just because people know what the healthy options are. If they do, how do I prepare that? How do I, food skills is something else we take into account. So again, that's a very long-winded answer of how people really can see and will start to see Blue Zones happening in the community, because they're going to see that Blue Zones logo or something that makes reference to being Blue Zones inspired or Blue Zones friendly. And that's going to be that trigger of, oh, that sounds delicious, but I know that it's actually the healthiest option or the healthiest choice for me.
One of the things that you said that really brought it together when we're talking about the difference in work today, and really resilience really is the linchpin. So before the pandemic, businesses had the leverage, right? Because everybody had to go to work. And so they had the leverage, and the name of the game, of course, in business is to make money. There's nothing wrong. Profit is good, right? So productivity was a main intention. And then to that extent, then retention and recruitment was important. But with the leverage shift of people demonstrating quite clearly that everybody is more than capable, many people are more than capable of working at home and being productive, it really changed the leverage so that employees, it's like we all got sent to our room, right? During COVID. And you're like, what do I care about? What do I care about? I care about my health. I care about my mental health, my family, my values. And so we saw that with the Great Resignation, how people came back and said, I understand that that's what you care about. What I care about is I care about culture. I care about diversity, equity, inclusion, and I care about my own health and well-being. What are you doing for that? So that really has shifted it. And companies that were already conscious, that were already on board, have become more so. And to your point, they have become the favored employers. Right. We see lots of different designations for companies that are demonstrating that they're caring more for their people genuinely, not just a checkbox. So with Blue Zones, that's another really beautiful aspect of it. And with my work as well, because when people are looking and they're saying, what do you do? And you say, well, we have programs that we teach you how to reduce your stress and increase your resilience, or we have Blue Zones programs that help you stay healthier, and it is part of our culture. Now you are developing, or I would even say, making it exponentially bigger, the value of your culture and the ease with which you are going to attract great people. And as you say, right, good people know good people. So the same thing, you just like when we connected, like, oh, you need to know someone. Same thing. It's like, we have a position open. Are you interested? Yes. So there's so many ways that we can support each other. And I think that's really the most beautiful thing about this, is when we get back to what is the highest good for everyone, what is the greatest well-being for everybody wins. And then we just raise the quality of our lives. We raise the quality of our work. We raise the quality of our care in our society. And what's more beautiful than that?
Yeah. So before we got on air, the three of us were talking about having the opportunity to see the Common Ground movie, the documentary, right? And for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's about regenerative soil and how farming is changing, how much more money is going back into the farmer and the community versus the government and that sort of thing. I mention that because it was such a powerful shift and initiative towards healthy farming, therefore healthy foods, and that sort of thing. This is a different health initiative, Blue Zones is. And so I'm curious, partly from a hospital perspective or big pharma perspective, I'm aware that sometimes it's, hey, take this medicine to potentially heal yourself, but truly the medicine is also going to make you sick. Therefore, you're in this vicious cycle of us owning you. I'm really overstating, but this seems different. How is it different? And how are we able to have someone like Honor Health say, this is important, when typically, traditionally, our hospitals and our large medical professionals are beholden to a whole different narrative?
Yes. So, and I don't want to speak on behalf of our partners at Honor Health and Todd as our leader, but I will say, and I've heard him say time and time again, this sort of flips all of that on its head. And I think that's a really important message. And I think it blazes new trails that are non-traditional as it relates to healthcare providers and healthcare organizations. And it really is a preventative model of healthcare. And I think that's so important and makes a statement of no, actually, if you're healthier on the front end, it saves the healthcare system upwards of millions and billions of dollars on the back end. And so that is one of those, again, myths that hospitals and doctors want you to be sick. It's their job. It's a lot less stress on them, and they can do their jobs better when we are healthier and we're just going in for routine checkup, not because we're scheduling a doctor's appointment because we have a symptom or there's something wrong. And I think, again, that's one of the things I love most about this work is that really resonates truly and deeply with Blue Zones of, yes, food is an important, it's a piece of the puzzle, right? We talk about connectivity, we talk about natural movement, we talk about downshifting, and purpose and having the right outlook in life, but food is a component of it. And as it relates to local agriculture and farmers, right? Farmers are farmers, and what can we do to help get their product to the people of their communities that is at an accessible place for everyone to be able to feed their families with healthy foods that are maybe locally grown down the street.
Yeah.
And there is that barrier, and there still exists. And there's wonderful organizations that are doing amazing work to help get that moved. And that is where some of the policy work that Blue Zones comes into play. And we really, without our people in places, we don't have policy. And so policy, Blue Zones Project works in 4 policy areas. Food systems is one of them. When we talk about food access, food skills, and it's big P policy and little P policy. So some might be, we're following, what's the legislature doing? We're following national and what's happening across our country, but we're also following our state and local too, to see what's in alignment of, things that really do make sense. As it relates to, even if there are eligibility for SNAP and WIC, right? Who's enrolled, who's utilizing that and who's accepting it so that produce can be bought. And, there's so many complexities to that. And then as it relates to the other policy areas, tobacco and alcohol, certainly areas of focus for us as well, is really reduction in use, and underage use is a big piece, as it relates to what seems to be cool or trendy. I think it evolves over generations in terms of what the latest and greatest product is being marketed to a variety of different audiences. So we really just want, education awareness so that people really understand the impact and the effect of what that does to you. And then, the built environment is another area. So when we talk about social gathering places and spaces, we have a lot of them, but are they being utilized? And do people know that they're there? Making sure that we are promoting and encouraging natural movement. So if somebody wants to go out for a walk, or if they want to walk to the store, do they have the ability to do that? So these are the types of things as it relates to policy work that Blue Zones Project. We can only do so much in 4 years, but we can at least certainly plant the seeds and hopefully see them and see the trees in the shade that we've created, maybe who knows how long, 15, 20, maybe more years down the road, to look back at the good work.
Do I remember you saying that the certification is about a 4-year process, right?
Yes.
And do some communities arrive at the 4-year and they don't receive the certification?
It can happen. I don't know exactly where that's happened, but I think in most cases we reach the goals, and communities reach the goals together. Again, in many cases, they're big goals, and we hope to exceed the goals. They're not easy. When we look at critical mass, those tipping points, the metrics are big for a community the size of ours. So when we look at 50% of our schools, right? It's a considerable number. When we look at, our population and individual engagement, it's a considerable number. But ultimately, and I talk myself out of a job, I think frequently when I say this, is we should get to a time where this is the way we're just living.
Right.
It doesn't take Blue Zones Project to be in the community anymore. And that's what we're trying to lay the groundwork and the foundation for, so that when we reach community certification, yes, we might be able to dig deeper and maybe continue on in immersion in a variety of other transformation solutions. But ultimately, our work should really leave Scottsdale in a good place to continue moving forward from a sustainable model that enough people know about it and have engaged with it and are living this way, that it doesn't take as much effort and work by a full team to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. You have all that work and the inertia that it creates and momentum. Inertia works both ways. So every step you take forward and every step that in that 4-year process is all to the good. It's adding to the snowball that is going to continue to move forward. I think that's the most imperative thing, is really being willing to do the work and understanding that, just physics wise, it's a harder push to start. But once you do get people who are, their lives are changed, right? When you see people who are they're moving and they weren't able to, or they've lost weight and they now have energy, they want to do things, right? They want to contribute, they want to participate in social things. It really is. I love that it's so many multi-pronged, right? Because big solutions, right? Big problems require multi-dimensions of approach. And it includes, all the variety of stakeholders, right? Just like, we have our microcosms and our macrocosms of community. And every time we keep connecting and we keep it in the forefront and we see different people in different aspects, how it's improving their lives, whether that's in business or personally or socially or governmentally, we can really see. And that is one of those collective vibrations that is palpable. That's what makes culture. That's what makes a city,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's really the people and what the vibe. It's not different than a business culture.
Right. I would love to hear from both of you. What would you say is the biggest challenge, right? So, Kathleen, when you are talking to an organization and they're intrigued and curious about Kennesaw, what is usually the biggest hurdle you have to overcome to have them say, yes, please, we need you and help influence what we're doing? And then with you as well, when you were looking at the city of Scottsdale, and as much as you've been immersed already in this, where is it like, oh, if we could just do this?
I don't know about you, but education. Really, when people understand the difference it makes
Mm-hmm.
and what it really is, what do you mean I could use my body to quiet my mind? What do you mean that I could actually do something in 2 minutes that now I can think clearly and get along with people? How is that possible, right? Because it's foreign to, we've not been taught that. So the first thing is education. The second thing is the willingness to try something new.
You've mentioned that a couple of times.
Willingness?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's really,
Yep.
that is just the energy of thought, right? Where we have a thought and being willing, the energy to put forth the effort to try.
Mm-hmm.
And for what I've seen, the pandemic was a blessing in this respect, which was, it's like pain or it's like health, right? When it gets bad enough, you're going to try something that you maybe wouldn't otherwise want to try. So stress and chronic stress and the impacts of that have gotten to the point where people are, we need our people to be able to function and stay healthy if we're as a collective going to move forward. So people are more open to that. And it's just the willingness to try something different and then see the results you get. So it's the experiment of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's being curious. Getting people to be curious to try, I would say.
That's my theme for the year, is staying curious. And I would also say that when it comes to willingness, I've been writing about this and speaking about it a lot, the willingness to step away from the things that make me sick.
Ooh, very good.
Or the people, you know,
Yes.
and maybe that's even a strong word, but I have to be willing to step away from the things that don't serve me in order to, and then stay curious and move into a different place. You have to be willing to go, oh, there is a different way. All right. Well, I don't know what it is, but let me go find it. And then bam, we're off on our way.
That's right.
Sarah, how about for you? What do you find are some of the greatest challenges?
So I think similarly, education awareness, right? And I think it's really important to note, and again, it's a nuance that maybe I only pay attention to, but we aren't becoming a blue zone. And I think that's important to kind of pull that thread a little bit, because when you look at the original blue zones, they are mountainous communities, you know, on the hillsides of Italy. And so we are an autocentric community, right? We like to get in our cars, but we also like to walk around. So it's how we harmoniously live together. So becoming a Blue Zone certified community looks and feels different than becoming a Blue Zone. And I think that's an important thing to make sure that people understand, because I think the challenge sometimes they get is if people have awareness of the original Blue Zones, they do then think like, oh, you're going to take my car, you're going to take away my meat, you're going to take away all these things. And actually it's the opposite. We're actually adding more choices. And so to that point about making choices, we're giving you more options. We're giving you more choices. It doesn't mean you have to take them or leave them. I'm not making anybody do anything that they don't want to. Or when it comes back to willingness, right? This is really on the individual, right? And on families, and it's making choices or trying out choices and meeting people where they're at to see, let me give this a shot and see if it does make a difference. Let me see if I sleep better or wake up with more energy or lose a few pounds. Who knows? You know, the goals and the outcomes could be different for every person as they implement some of this into their lives. So I would say that challenge is really, again, the awareness of what this is and what it isn't. And it's an important one that oftentimes people, if their source of information isn't us, I'll say, as the source of truth, or those that have been, trained as our volunteers or ambassadors or, committee members and co-chairs of our leadership teams that, again, have all the right nuggets to share what this is out in the community. So Scottsdale tip to tip is a long and narrow city. It's a lot of ground to cover to ensure that the right messaging is getting out there. So that is a challenge. I would say the other challenge is the highest hanging fruit. When we look at the numbers and the stats as it relates to social isolation and loneliness, and COVID certainly didn't do us any favors as what we're coming out of and what we're facing now. And we see it not only for our aging population, but we see it in our youth and our children. And the amount of money that is going towards diagnoses like anxiety and depression. And again, just that loss of social connection and real life human connection. It's an epidemic. The Surgeon General, has called it out pretty outwardly. That is probably the hardest area too, is how do we find those individuals? How do we connect with them? How do we just give them someone to talk to when they have maybe one or no one to turn to in a time of need? And so we really lean on the wonderful partnerships and the great social workers of the world that do get those calls, whether it's a family member or loved one that's out of town and says, please go to this family member's home. They have nobody that is checking in on them that's close by. And so that idea of connectivity and your positive pack of people, and saying getting rid of the stuff that is not healthy for you mentally, that's the part where those are the people I think could be the most transformative in this work. But it's how do we then connect with them, and how do we extract something that they can do and that they're able to do, because everybody is again at a different place and a different starting point. And certainly there's a lot that are already well on their path and living this way, but I think there's a lot that even some small changes could really impact them favorably with better outcomes.
This is going to be a ridiculous statement. I'm trying to decide if I even should say it. I recently have put myself online dating. And that's a whole nother, that's like,
I met my husband online, and we've been married for a long time.
I'm so
if that makes you feel any better.
It makes me feel so much better.
I'll share it live.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, so good. So for our
stories, good to know, ladies, gentlemen.
My point being, right? So at 59 years old, it feels a whole different ballgame. I've been married for 30 years, and now here I am. My point being, though, as I'm kind of looking and seeing, is this somebody that I'd be curious to get to know, right? Staying curious. There is a huge difference. I'm seeing a huge difference between what appears to be the healthy male and the not so healthy male. And and it's really fascinating to me. And I do the best I can to live as healthy as I can, emotionally, mentally, and nutritionally, and socially, and all that. But it's fascinating to me that the time we are living in, it's so vastly different. So I know it's completely weird and off topic, but as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, I'm gravitating more towards people who are going to be in alignment with the way I think, the way I speak, the way I meditate, and the way I eat, and who I choose to have in my social circle. So anyway, let's move the topic.
I think it's a very valid one, actually.
I agree.
I do too.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, I do, seriously, because we want to. So one of the hardest things, if you're talking about whatever age you are, but let's say past, your teens, and you have been very conscious of making choices. So say you've been on a path of getting better, right? We're all works in progress. But if you're on a path to improve whatever that is in your world, or whatever your perspective is, our environment is the most important thing. And there is no bigger environment than who you're with, right? So I think it's alignment is what's important, right? So if you're already on a path, of course, it makes sense to me, and that it is true for me too. I align myself. I want the people who are moving forward in their life. They don't have to be doing exactly what I'm doing or have my same beliefs, or it's that they have beliefs. It's that they have a consciousness of health. It's that they have their own goals for their own well-being of mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual, or financial, all of it. So, and then in other cases, I don't think it's just men. I think it's both ways, right?
I agree.
So, fair to men, right? I'm sure not every woman they meet is like, oh, you're very healthy and fit. But I do think it's important, because just like what we're talking about as in preferences of work environments, right? If you're talking about culture, who doesn't want to be with somebody who is going to uplift them, who doesn't want to be with somebody that actually you can learn from? And if you're wanting to, right? If you don't want it, then you're not going to pick those people. And then, we all get to attract to whoever we're going to attract. But I do think it's a really important aspect of that socialization piece, right? Of how we can uplift each other, whether it's for a romantic relationship or not. But to your point about having the events, right, where people can get together, oftentimes talk to the social piece, lots of options for couples, right? I know I saw the city of Scottsdale did like, oh, we're going to have this thing for Valentine's, all these couples. So I was thinking, well, what about all the single people? Like who actually would love to probably have somewhere to go or do something on a, holiday that is all about love and being with people. So the more we're conscious of the different situations that people have and provide opportunities for healthier choices and education, I think that again helps us all.
And there's 3 kind of lifestyle principles that fall within the Blue Zone's Power 9, and loved ones first is one of them. And that is by blood or by kinship, right? What your definition of your loved ones first can mean something different in every single family dynamic. And then having that positive pack. And I think it resonates with dating too. And terms of seeking a partner or potential life partner, is that even when you look at friendship circles, right, if 5 of your friends are obese or overweight, you have a 150% more likelihood that you too will become obese or overweight, because that most likely you all are hanging out together and you're doing the same types of things, which most likely if you're at that state, then it may not be the healthiest, right? And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with surrounding yourself and gravitating towards those, because when you think about potentially long term, right, you want somebody right next to you that's thriving at 100, not just somebody that you now are taking care of, or whether it's mentally or physically. I think I don't know which is worse, right? When you are aging. And so depending on the individual, that's hard. And aging is hard. So why not age with someone who has that same lifestyle that you do, so that you can age beautifully together. So nothing wrong with that at all.
My son and I were just talking about this the other day, and I kind of imposed that on him. He's a high schooler, and who, what's the saying? You are the sum total of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And for him, fortunately, he's an athlete. He's an honor student. He's really gets along with people of all ages. And the majority of his downtime is gaming. And so even that gaming environment, his friends that he hasn't met, I mean, he's old enough that I give him some liberty to do some of that. But again, I keep talking to him, like, what music are you listening to? And those are relationships. And so just be mindful of who you're picking, because to your point earlier, that's really who we become. So, well, then I'm glad I threw that out there.
Yes,
it was very
relevant.
Thanks for validating me. All right. Anything special coming up for Scottsdale that we want to be aware of? I know you throw a lot of initiative or a lot of different, projects and things. What's coming up for Blue Zones that you can share with us? And then how do folks stay and get involved?
So lots of events and programming. The best place to get all the information, bluezonesprojectscottsdale.com, is really where we load all of our workshops, our events, our programs, and they range from a variety of different things, which I think is important. And we're really trying to implement more programming too that also accommodates a variety of different schedules and audiences. And so there could be things like a, food packing at a food bank volunteer opportunity that we help bring people together. There could be walking groups. There could be Netflix docuseries screenings that, again, if you don't have Netflix, that's okay. We're going to go to large places and venues to be able to share that story and engage in some conversation and dialogue. There are, again, more volunteer opportunities, more purpose workshops that are going to be put out for the community to be able to sign up and participate in. And then we're going to have, a lot of just sort of ad hoc programming as it relates to the City of Scottsdale's events and what they're already doing. So you'll see us out and about, and we'll also promote some of those opportunities that the community can attend and participate in, should it resonate with them. So there's a lot of ways the Blue Zones can be intertwined into the events and programs that are already happening in a lot of different capacities. So that is the best place to see what's up and coming. Also, whether it's your employer or your school or a grocery store that you shop at or a restaurant that you frequent that you think, gosh, I wonder if they could become Blue Zones approved. We'd love to hear about it. And if you have a connection, or if you know the owner, or however, we can just have a discovery conversation, right? It may not be a fit for everyone, and that's okay. We're not looking to get 100% of everyone in the entire community, but again, just we have certain metrics that we are trying to reach that are going to make some good change, and that's going to be from all over the community. So please feel free to connect us with those places. But then from a personal standpoint too, that it's online, and you can take a look at the personal pledge, and it really is 5 steps, 5 promises, 5 actions for yourself. There's a kind of personal checklist, and it's as simple as keeping a pair of walking shoes close by the door, right? Or maybe removing devices from the kitchen or the kitchen table. And so there's some things that, again, designating a space in your home for quiet time, meditation, downshifting. So these are some of the, again, kind of simple things, but then there's lots of great resources on our website too. So if you want to kind of establish your own baseline, right? We've got a true vitality test, right? Based on your current behaviors and habits and lifestyle, here's the projection of how old you might live to, and you could add X number of years by implementing a few additional things. We've got a true nutrition test that's online as well, that kind of gives you a baseline for overall diet quality. So based on, it's actually a fun little 60-second, it literally takes 60 seconds to do, and it's pictures of food, and you kind of select that picture that most looks like what you consume and you eat on a regular basis. And so it kind of gives you a food quality score and a score of sort of where you fall. And then you can kind of make adjustments from there. So lots of ways to just engage as an individual, get, the places and spaces you spend the most time involved, or even opportunities to invite Blue Zones Project to come in and share this story. So we're happy to go. We go out. I go out a lot. Our team goes out a lot into community, whether it's faith-based organizations or civic and social organizations, to just talk about Blue Zones Project and Blue Zones, because really, ultimately, anybody everywhere can sort of implement these lifestyle behaviors. So it's just understanding the story behind it. So that was a lot, and a lot of ways to get engaged.
Well, that's what we asked for. Okay. I love it. And again, it's bluezonesprojectscottsdale.com. And you all are on LinkedIn, as well as Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. BZP Scottsdale.
Excellent. Oh, thank you. Fantastic. And just such a wealth of knowledge. And how long? February 2022?
So we kicked off. So we technically started in February 2023, and I came on board. I can't believe it's been almost a year. May of 2023 is when I started. So.
Big learning curve, but here you are.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's easy. Well, it's easy to share when you are passionate and care and are fascinated by so again, feel really fortunate and grateful that I think this work found me intentionally, and now I get to see what I can do with it to share it to the community.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Kathleen, how about you? How do we stay in touch with you, and what is that discovery conversation? What does that look like for folks?
Well, you can contact me at my website, which is my name, KathleenGramsey.com. And there's 2 kinds of conversations, discovery. So I've been working mostly with leaders and teams, because my work has just evolved. But remember that it started with individuals, and it became the virtual system of the self-care system, our self-care system. So one of the impediments to people moving is they have issues, physical issues, musculoskeletal issues that keep them, whether maybe they had an injury, or they have back pain, or they have neck pain, or they have, they had an ankle that they rolled a million times and it just doesn't seem right. So when I created Kennesaw Self-Care, and when I retired from my practice, I put it into a virtual system for the public, so that anybody who wanted a non-drug alternative for musculoskeletal, soft tissue musculoskeletal disorders could have one. So I do have both the corporate side of my website as well as the individuals. So I still support both, and my heart's, back from being a therapist. So if for people who want to do more or feel better so they can do other things, a lot of times if it's physical, you start there. And oftentimes, people can get lost in the system of, especially when it comes to musculoskeletal. A lot of times people have pain, but they'll go to a doctor and they say, we can't see anything. We don't see it. It doesn't show up on MRI. It doesn't show up. Because a lot of times it is in the connective tissue, which is, without going into the whole thing of that, it is in when you know how to reset your muscles, which is what this does, you reset your muscle function and clear out all the connective tissue just by doing the movements that are in the videos. You now can reset your whole body anytime you need to. So this is, I did it initially so that people had the opportunity. I wanted to teach people to fish. And that's why I went from being a therapist working on people to teaching these, just like we're talking about with Blue Zones, right? You give people the tools. So whether you're an organization with leaders and teams and you need support in that, or you're an individual who wants to have better mental clarity or better physical mobility and range of motion and less pain, there are answers for you there at my website. And I'm happy to have those discovery calls and see how I can help.
I love that we've covered the macro and the micro, the individual and the community. And really, it's all around the same conversation, healthy living and longevity.
Yes.
Yeah, sustainability as well. So great. I'm so appreciative of both of you being here. Thank you again for your time today. And you've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneurial Center. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean Blue Zones. Until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.